Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Lucas.
and we are two aspiring filmmakers making unnecessary commentary on famous movies.
Each week, we will randomly select a film to analyze, discuss, and review.
We will select the film at the end of each podcast, so you will have ample time to watch the movie before the next episode.
We are slightly qualified film students. Hello, everybody.
Welcome back to Slightly Qualified Film Students.
Here we are. We're coming in with The Farewell, which came out last year. Great movie.
Yeah.
Super fun indie A24 film. This was my second time. Ben's first.
My first time watching it. Very, very, it's a very sad film, but it was like a pleasant viewing experience. It was a nice, relaxing film. It is funny. I laughed numerous times during this film. I also cried. You get the best of both worlds. Mm-hmm. It's that beautiful, dark comedy. It's just a great film, really. In the wake of more deep films we've been reviewing, like The Master, just having a nice, funnier movie to spice things up is, I'll take it. You know, it was a very good watch for my first time.
Yeah, it's nice, and I love a good dark comedy. It's probably my favorite genre next to crime thrillers. But
hell yeah,
I really like this movie, and it really hits home for me. I mean, it's not only a great balance between drama and comedy, and needing that line between the darkness of the situation and also finding the jokes in it. But also I'm half Japanese, so there is a certain relatability to the family sequences, the dinner sequences, how everyone talks to each other. It's very relatable to a certain sense. So I feel like especially a lot of the jokes hit a little bit harder for me. But overall, it's just a really fun film, and I really enjoyed watching this for my second time. You want to do a quick plot summary?
Yeah, sure. Got one pulled up right here. Okay. Billy's family returns to China under the guise of a fake wedding to stealthily say goodbye to their beloved matriarch, the only person that doesn't know she has a few weeks to live.
Yeah.
So essentially, the grandma character, Nai Nai, I don't know if... I think this is an actual kind of way things go in China, where they don't tell her that she is dying, pretty much to carry her emotional burden on themselves, pretty much is how they describe it in the film.
Yeah, and this film is like a autobiography to a certain extent of the director, Lulu Wang, who she went through this exact situation, and this is kind of like a form of catharsis for her. She said that she just kind of made this film, and it's a really interesting thing because, as we're Canadian, it's not something you see, and you see that through Billy's character because she's a New Yorker, very much American, like how she thinks, and it's interesting seeing her develop throughout this film, and how at first she's very set in stone against lying to her grandmother, and then as the film goes along, she starts to kind of just accept it, and then you ultimately see her basically run trying to get the test results so that they can be altered so that her grandma doesn't find out. So it's this really interesting character progression, and I think that you get a lot more heart out of this film, especially that's coming from a director who she's basically writing her own story, writing about stuff she went through. So really hard-hitting emotional film.
And I just love the family vibes of the whole cast, and just the way the dialogue is written between them. It just makes for some really awesome, awkward family moments, and just some almost inside jokes between characters.
Yeah, and the ensemble acting.
It's just a very fun vibe.
The ensemble acting is overall just pretty strong, very strong, especially Xiao Zhu Zhen and Awkwafina.
Yeah,
both.
I was gonna say that too.
Yeah.
And the sister character, played by Lu Hong, I also thought was really great.
Who is actually the aunt of the director, Lulu Wang. Like, she played herself. She played her own... She played herself. Yeah,
exactly.
So that was pretty cool. Yeah, and, I like it when we get A24 films. I think this is our second, right? Enemy and then this. I like it when we get A24 films because, well, first of all, they're my favorite production company. I love A24 so much.
Same.
And
any film student agrees with this.
Every film you get from A24, I'm not saying every A24 film is amazing, but they're all solid.
But I am saying
they're all solid to a certain extent. You don't get any cats from A24. You don't get any absolute bombs of a film. You always are going to get, if you go into an A24 film, you're always going to get something that's decent. And
I'm not going to lie, I didn't really like 8th Grade that much. But also Hereditary was too scary for me, so I didn't finish it.
Okay, well, I liked 8th Grade and I love Hereditary, so
I liked it, but it was terrifying. I couldn't do it.
Oh, I can't wait for our Halloween special. That's gonna be fun.
Oh, I cannot not. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. But yeah, A24 is just a really great studio who kind of proves that you can make successful indie films in today's hyper-studialized film industry. And this is a great example.
It is.
Of just a film that has good heart and just good morality to it. And is just a funny, feel-good film that doesn't need, crazy studio budgets to make an entertaining film. And I really like that about it.
Yes. And I think it's really interesting how this story came to be, this film, because I was listening to an interview from the director, and she basically said that originally she was talking about her life situation on a podcast before this was even in the works of being a film. She was just talking about her experiences, and she was approached by Disney, who wanted to make this film.
Wow.
But the thing is that Disney wanted to take her concept, basically, and what they wanted to do was basically Crazy Rich Asians, just remove the rich and add in the grandma's dying. So basically what they wanted to do was, instead of her going to see her cousin's wedding, it was she has to find a guy, and then they have to go and stage the wedding, but then they ultimately fall in love, and it was that whole, cliche of a rom-com that they wanted to do, and then it was more of the B story that the grandma was dying, and it was more focused on the romance, which ultimately probably would have been an okay rom-com, but that's not the point of this film. That's not the point of this film.
Yeah.
And obviously she turned them down, and she was approached by a lot of big production companies that actually wanted to do a similar kind of thing, but ultimately,
and A24 was like, yo, we'll let you do your thing.
Yes, but we'll only give you $3 million. But you will have complete control. And, I don't think this is a film that needs a whole lot of money. So I think that is a very notable thing to do from the director. And obviously this is a piece of work that's really dear to her heart, so she doesn't want it to get Disneyfied. But, I think that's really notable and it's what makes me really respect this film and A24 and the director. So let's get into some audience questions because we have a couple.
Sure. Or do we want to do standout scenes first?
Oh, you know what? You're right. We do want to do standout scenes first.
What's your standout scene, Lucas? What's your favorite scene in the whole film?
Okay, yeah. This one's might be weird, but it's the graveyard scene. So the scene where they're at
the bows,
the grave.
Yes.
Yes. I think that that in itself is one of the best written scenes I've seen in a long time. Comedically
Damn.
and just an all-around scene. It's written perfectly. Like, we're leading into it from a joke before that we're talking about people like crying and trying to show how sad they are into when a loved one dies, and like basically not focusing on their actual sadness but focusing on their overall appearance and wanting other people to think that they're sad in order to, you know, fit in to a certain extent.
And then talking about the professional criers.
Yeah. And the thing that's so great about this scene is that you get this really interesting family dynamic, and it's awkward, it's weird, but it's also one of the scenes that we see everyone's kind of loosened up, because throughout most of the film, everyone's very, very awkward, very sad because they're trying to hide this secret from Nai. And in this film, you kind of just, they're focusing more on the death of their grandpa or their father or their uncle. And they're not as focused on that anymore. So you see everyone kind of open up, and you see like this true family dynamic. And the jokes that are played off of each other is really strong. The bows are hilarious. And overall, as like the link at the end, I think that this is a like really, really strong comedic scene that gives a lot of development to all of the characters. Because there's a lot of characters in this film. And when you have a lot of characters, you can't give a whole lot of development to all of them. So when you're able to write a scene that is, you know, it's like 4 minutes long, but you're able to give a solid amount of development to all of the characters just through like their interactions with one another, that's really good screenwriting and directing.
Totally.
And I think that is, well, yeah, that's my standout scene.
Yeah, for me, the standout like moment is the tracking shot of Nai from the back of the taxi window.
I mean,
there's a lot of things I love about that shot, and I'm gonna talk about it in cinematography, I think.
And ending.
But for the scenes, yeah, exactly, yeah. For scenes, I'm gonna have to. It's a very long scene, but the wedding, like I could pick out specific moments. But I think that the wedding scene as a whole is just kind of the culmination of everything I love about the film. Just having the awkward family dynamics of all these characters, and also just very heartfelt moments between them. Making basically the perfect dramedy vibe of sadness, but also funny things like the drinking game they play or whatever to get how drunk on his wedding day. And also just like dialogue that they have, like Nai's dialogue with the three people she was in the army with. Just giving little backstory like that in a way that is so casual and written so casually, but it just makes for these very entertaining dialogue driven scenes. And I think that the wedding scene is kind of the culmination of all that. And also I just really like the very sad monologue given, because what's his name in the film? The uncle character, Billy's uncle, the guy who moved to Japan. Nai's other son basically just gives such a sad speech.
But it's also funny.
But it's also funny.
You know, there's something that's so sad about that speech, but it's also kind of hilarious in the fact that everyone's just dead face while he's bawling his eyes out.
Yeah, because they don't really know the true meaning of the speech. That's what this film is built on, is that dramatic irony that is so present in the very concept. The whole concept of the film is dramatic irony. And it's just in moments like that where it's so present, where we know, the character knows, but other people in the scene don't. And that's what really makes for a lot of these funny moments. Shout out to 10th grade English class for teaching me that one.
Dramatic irony. Obviously, gotta get the... I should just, like, write an essay on this film talking about dramatic irony.
Exactly.
Okay, now we're gonna do audience questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so
This
we
is
got
like
some.
my favorite segment.
Yeah, I like it. We got some deep questions today, some really deep
Okay.
ones. Okay.
Okay.
First question. The farewell prompts us to examine what it means to have responsibility over information and the ethics of disclosing that information or not doing so. What would you do in this situation and why?
Ah, damn. Uh, hmm. Like, I think it's a very difficult question just because in our society here it's unheard of really to not tell someone their diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I don't really know if it's possible in Canada or America to like literally forge documents to make someone not know. But like obviously that's not the point of the question. I don't know. I think that morally it's a really tough question because obviously to be hit with the burden of having like a time limit on your life is something really horrible, and a feeling that obviously I don't really have any perspective towards. But I don't know. I feel like it really depends on the situation. I don't know. For me, I kind of think would stand with where Aquafina's character was at the start of the film. Like, I just feel like that's something that a loved one should know. Like, I don't know. It would feel wrong in a way to not let them know.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something, well, it's definitely culture and, we're very westernized, but yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, to a certain extent it is very, there's just this gray area. And I think personally I would tell because I just think that's the right thing to do. But I don't I don't know what I would do if it was like my entire family was in on it and it was like something like this film
Right.
embedded in their culture, because I do
That had already been
understand.
decided.
I totally understand the concept of it.
Yeah,
And
I do too.
it kind of makes sense to me to a certain extent, but I still just have this feeling of it just kind of is iffy. It's like, because I would want to know. I think that's what it comes down to, is I would want to know. So then it feels wrong to not tell someone. But, in this film, it's interesting because they say that Nai did this when her husband was dying too. She did this also. So it's clearly something that she accepts and she believes in.
Yeah.
So it kind of does make sense to do it to her in this situation.
And I also think that it might be something that I get a different perspective on a little later in life. Like, I don't know how much I've contemplated my own mortality or whatever. But I think that, currently I think I would want to know so I could, like they say in the film, if she has anything she needs to take care of. Like, I think if I had, like, a bucket list or something, or just things I wanted to do, or just, have that knowledge so then I could spend every minute of that time with loved ones.
Yeah.
I think would kind of be the thing I would want. But once again, that's just the westernization talking, and obviously this is a part of like what their family wants to do. And I think that if my family had come to that decision, then I would respect it and go along with it. But yeah.
Okay, next question, which is going to be really difficult for both of us to answer, but do you think Lulu Wang's film goes beyond cut and paste representation? Now, the thing about this question is that neither of us are Chinese. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm half Japanese, but that still doesn't give me any insight on the actual representation of Chinese culture. I mean, there are things that I've seen in my family that's put on screen. What I am going to say about this question is, because I did listen to interviews from the director, is that her big thing about this film was she wanted to accurately represent her family. And
Right.
when they were making this movie, the production company, or A24, basically they said that they thought that, well, there were a couple things. The first thing was they thought that Aquafina's mom was too mean in the film, and that they should make her nicer or more, loving. And I think the fact that she didn't, obviously, is interesting, because first of all, it's about her relationship with her mother, and it's also the fact that I think her mother is very loving in this film, in my opinion. When she's not mean, that's her personality. I mean, and she's grieving, and there's a lot on her mind. She's not being mean. She's just, that's kind of,
Yeah.
and I mean, all of my aunts and parents, grandparents, they all have that kind of similar personality to a certain extent. So I do think that is pretty accurate. The other thing was they wanted to change it, from the grandma calling Aquafina stupid child to silly child, because they thought stupid was too harsh. So I think the fact that Lulu Wang chose to stick with these things and not, change this stuff to maybe make it more well received by a wider range of audience, I think does to a certain extent say that it's a pretty solid representation. But, I'm not claiming to know really anything, because I don't.
I think, as the resident white boy of the podcast, I'm not going to make any claims on whether or not it's an accurate representation of Chinese culture, because I really have no idea. And China is a huge place with literally over 1 billion people. So I think it's very hard to just kind of take this story and say, well, is this an accurate representation of culture?
And this film, there's a lot of controversy around it last year during awards season, because a lot of the awards shows were classifying this film as a foreign film, which is happening again this year with Minari.
Okay, well, Minari, I feel like, is different. Actually,
I mean, what
that's
classifies something as a foreign film? Because this is an American film. This is an American film.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like this is totally an American film.
Like, the production company is American, the director is American, half of the actors are American. I mean,
just
it's
because
an
it's
American
in
film.
a different
Yeah.
just because it's in a different language doesn't make it a foreign film.
That's like
Parasite is a foreign film because it is
it's a Korean
created
film.
in South Korea.
Yeah.
Like, shot in South Korea. Minari is shot in Arkansas, directed by Asian Americans, starring Asian Americans. Not that really has anything to do with it. Just the sheer fact that it is an American production company shot in America, but it's in Korean, doesn't make it.
Yeah. And also with The Farewell, it's the exact same thing. I mean, yes, they aren't in America for most of the film, but that's like saying Inglourious Bastards is a foreign film because it's not based in America.
Yeah.
Like, it's still an American team behind the film. I mean, there's so many films. Like, Call Me By Your Name, that's like saying that's a foreign film because it's all in Italy.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense at all. And I think this film could have won quite a few awards if it wasn't classified, or at least been nominated if it wasn't classified as a foreign film. Because Golden Globes, you can't really nominate a foreign film for the other categories, because I think The Farewell could have easily got a screenplay nomination, right? It could have easily got even, you know, a cinematography nomination, and it couldn't get those because it was
So
classified
it was
as a foreign
actually
film.
considered a foreign film.
Yeah, last year it was.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was. And
I
pretty
mean-
much the only award show that didn't was the Spirit Indie Awards, which The Farewell won Best Indie Film last year. Best overall. But
I feel
yeah.
like that's a difficult zone. Just like the other thing is with Minari, which is classified as not foreign film, correct? They also
it is
that's,
classified as
shot.
foreign film.
Minari
is
is.
classified. Yeah. Not at the Oscars, but everywhere else.
Right. Yeah, that's tough. Like, it really does come down to whether or not language is enough to make something a foreign film. Because, like I was about to say, The Farewell is almost entirely in Chinese. But then I realized Minari is literally like 99.9% in Korean. So I really don't know how you can argue that one is foreign and one isn't, or vice versa. It's either they're both foreign films or neither of them are.
Yeah. Well,
If it's
think
up to
that,
me,
yeah.
I'd say they're not foreign films, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, that's our take. I think I like that it's in a foreign language because that adds to the realism, because obviously it's like Inglourious Basterds, we were talking about this, if you're gonna be in a different country, you're not gonna be speaking English unless it's an English-speaking country. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's about realism. Like, most films don't do this, and I get it. Most films base off in other places, and they talk English half the time.
And they want to appeal to their audience, which is Americans.
But that's fake, because that wouldn't be the case in real life. So, you know, I think that this film, The Farewell, it's not, you know, it might not be the most brilliant film ever, but on like a respectability level, I respect this film a lot for its choices.
Same.
And for just like not going through all the tropes it could have done. Anyways, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come in with the actual review of this film. Okay, we are back.
Yeah.
Hopping
Ready to hop
into
into our review. Story
and
originality.
originality out of 10. Yeah, what did you think?
I think that it's a really interesting concept and a very original concept too. Obviously it's based off of personal experience, but it just makes for such a great film premise. Like, I'm sure
it does.
that Lulu Wang had like an epiphany after that podcast of like, damn, that could make such a good film. And also obviously personal reasons you want to make a film about that, but really it just makes for this great template almost for a dramedy, because you have the situation that is very, very sad. Obviously, losing loved ones is a very stressful and just, you know, sad time. But also just the uniqueness of not telling the grandma just makes for some very great jokes. And it really just sets this up to be such a great ride. A roller coaster of emotions, as a dramedy should be. And while it is a fairly... it's not a very deep story necessarily. Obviously, you know, it's touching on the question of morals and is it right to do this. But at the end of the day, surface value, it's a fairly simplistic story, but I really like it. It's just a very interesting concept, and in my eyes, very original.
Yeah, I think this is a really original film. I haven't seen anything like it.
Yeah.
there really isn't any films like this. I mean, there are films about loved ones dying, but nothing. There aren't a lot of films that are about the lead up, or even in that sense. There aren't a lot of films out there where it's like, will they or will they not die? How are we gonna say goodbye? And it feels like a topic that would make sense for a lot of films to be about, but you don't really see many like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think this is an extremely original film. And yeah, I think the story is great. As you're saying, balancing the drama and the comedy, creating really interesting, strong characters. And also just the fact that this film was able to be like a very interesting and entertaining film with a $3 million budget. I'm pretty sure this is our lowest budget film we've done so far.
Yeah, I think so as well.
And it doesn't feel like the lowest budget film we've done so far. That's the other thing,
Mm-hmm.
We've like, I think Enemy or even The Place Beyond the Pines or Sing Street feel like much lower budget films.
But yeah, this film does have a very sophisticated almost feel to it.
Yeah, it feels like a real film. And I really like the story. The first time I watched this film, I was just captivated by the overall premise. And I really do like that this film, even though, yes, the premise is about morals and ethical boundaries and all that, it also is balancing this idea of, an immigrant family discussing, like, is the American dream all worth it? They have that interesting conversation about it. It's all about this kind of, like, dilemma of, being American and being Chinese and not really being able to fit in to one or the other, not really knowing who you are.
Yeah.
So I think that this film just tackles a lot of really interesting topics. And you're right, it's not a super complicated story, but because it's so original and because it's just an overall really well done premise, I give it a 9 out of 10 for story and originality.
Same here. I gave it a 9% out of 10 as well. Yeah, it's a great premise that's able to tackle some deep concepts while also just being able to be a comedy at times and a sad movie at times too. It's really great overall. Yeah. So
Yeah.
with that being said, let's move on to Beginning, which is out of 5%. The opening 5 minutes. What are your thoughts?
I like it. I think that this is a really strong opening, especially that opening shot. I mean, I love that opening shot.
Mm-hmm.
We start this film off. Okay, so it is set up. It's set up. It's set up. The opening 10 minutes is set up, but I think it's good setup. Like,
right.
We aren't thrown into the film too quickly, and the film actually focuses more on setting up the relationship between Nai and Billy instead of focusing on like the illness and the hiding from the family. That comes later. But I think that was a really strong choice to focus more on the relationship in the beginning and the character development.
Yeah.
Because then when you hear the news later,
I mean,
it all hits a lot harder.
I agree with you, but at the same time, I feel like that's kind of the obvious choice from a film director's perspective. Not to say that it's not the right choice, but I don't know. I feel like that's always how you should open a film about, especially when it's focused on characters' relationships like this. You want to start by building them. And, like, I think that there are a lot of cool shots, actually, in the opening 5 minutes. Like, Nai getting the CT scan. I thought that was a super cool shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the character development is good. And actually, I really like that they subtly use the score to basically... Like, if I hadn't read anything about the film, I'm pretty sure I would have known that she had... or was sick, like, right away, just because of the use of score and just the way they shot the aunt, her sister, kind of receiving the news. I really like that subtlety. And But I don't know. I feel like the opening 5 to 10 minutes are decently slow. And yes, I think it's good setup, but I don't necessarily know if it's just anything above average. Like, I would say it's just a pretty not predictable, but just run of the mill opening 5-10 minutes for me.
Yeah, I agree. It is pretty average looking, like average opening with the setup and everything. But what makes it a little bit above average for me is the cinematography, because if I'm contrasting it to the other films we've done that I've given a very like a 3 out of 5 for beginning and average. Those are films where I do feel like their average is like looking at Sing Street, for example. Whereas this film, it just feels more stylized, and it's like it's setting up the film in a pretty normal way, but it's also setting up the style of the film really well, I think. It's definitely a low 4, but I do think it's a little bit above average for me. So 4 out of 5 for beginning.
Fair enough. I gave it a 3% out of 5. Yeah. Let's move on to ending out of 5%. I think that the ending is pretty solid. I think that it's a really great ending, but it doesn't necessarily stick the final shot, in my opinion. I really love the final montage of Billy and her family driving away from Nai. I cried viciously, profusely. I'd say I cried the most out of any film so far. There's just something about that shot of Nai out the back window that's like so nostalgic and like relatable to anybody who's ever had to, like, if you like, for me, my grandparents live very far away. So when we, say goodbye, it's kind of like that, like, oh, you're not gonna see them until like next year or whenever you're going on the next trip to see them. So literally looking out the back window of a car, and like watching them kind of disappear is just nostalgic and relatable, and I love that shot so much.
Yeah, and like the ending's just so sad.
Yeah. Even though you get the happy news that Nai did in fact survive in real life.
But the thing, okay, here's what I think about this ending. I think it's very close to being a perfect ending. Very close. It's very ambiguous to a certain extent. It definitely does not overstay its welcome. It actually ends like pretty quickly. She gets home and then it kind of just ends, which I like.
That
these
final
are the
ha is just awkward to me. I don't know.
I know it's awkward, but I think
felt
that's
forced.
Also kind of the point.
It felt very strange to me. It was almost like a fourth wall break in a way. Not that they're actually breaking the fourth wall, but just she kind of breaks character and does a random callback that, I don't know, it just kind of took me out, and I understand the significance, especially since the next video is a video of the actual living, breathing Nai that the character is based off of doing her exercises or whatever you want to call that. Like, I really understand why they did it, but just, I don't know, while watching the ending, I was like crying and mentally preparing, and then, I don't know, like the 15 seconds or so after she gets back to America, just, it wasn't the smoothest landing for me.
Yes, I agree. The first time I watched this film, I thought it was kind of a weird ending. Although, on second viewing, I actually kind of liked it. I thought that it worked for her character. Because she is a very awkward character, so actually that whole point of it feeling awkward kind of makes sense to me. Here's what I
Yeah.
don't like about the ending. And yes, this is a nitpick, but this is the reason why. Okay. I don't like the CG birds.
Facts, dude. Actually, that is super factual. That took me out too. I was like, what the hell is this?
Here is the truth. I would have given this ending full marks if it weren't for the CG birds.
Damn CG
I'm not
birds.
joking. Because, okay, I get it that they're trying to have this whole motif and symbolism of birds throughout the film. But, I don't know, it just doesn't really land for me. I don't really think it had much of a point.
Same
And
here, honestly.
I think the 2 birds were enough. Or, you know, when she comes back into her apartment, have a bird there. Like, you know, that's all you need. You don't need a flock of birds flying out of a tree, because then all of a sudden I think I'm watching Birdemic. It... Or just have one bird fly out of the tree. You don't need a whole flock. If it was one bird, then it wouldn't be so obvious, the CG. Or you could have used a real bird and had one bird fly out of the tree and it would have worked. Because, you know, you had one bird show up throughout the film, so one bird makes sense to leave. But instead of having this whole flock of CG birds, yeah, I'm really nitpicking. This is 1 second out of the ending. But I just, it annoyed me. But here's the thing. I don't feel like I should dock an entire mark for 1 second.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I'm going to do something I don't do very often. I'm going to dock half a mark.
There you go.
So I'm giving the ending a 4.5 because I do think it's a really good ending. It ends on a high note for me. It's emotional. It did make me tear up. Definitely made me tear up. Like, I was crying the first time I watched this, and it even got me a little bit this time. But you know, those birds. I'm sorry, but I just can't give it full marks.
I had to give it a regular old 4% out of 5. I don't know. I didn't really like her ending, and also CG birds, honestly. I don't know. I just thought the ending wasn't as smooth as it could have been, especially when I had already recovered from crying before the credits had hit. That's how I'm going to rate it. If I'm still crying by the time the credits hit, that's good. This time, you know, I kind of stopped crying and wiped my eyes and just, yeah. And then there was a couple more seconds and then the credits hit. So it's a 4%.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, let's hop into screenplay and dialogue out of 8.
Yeah. I think that this is a very, very solid screenplay.
Yeah.
And, okay, I'll get my nitpick kind of out of the way. I thought that the dialogue at some points was, like, really corny and kind of cliche. But I'm going to chalk this up to subtitles because I don't think I had the most reliable subtitles.
Yeah, and
for
also
this film.
Opposite languages don't really, or different languages don't always translate.
Yeah, they don't
really
always
well
translate
into each other.
directly. And
Yeah.
I did not have the official subtitles. I had just not official subtitles.
Yeah, I think this screenplay is super impressive in itself that she was able to, you know, balance 2 languages, English and Mandarin. It's a hard thing to do, especially if you don't speak the language fluently or if you can't write it, which she said she can't really write and read Mandarin. And also the fact that you're writing for, you know, half of the actors in this film are Mandarin speaking. They don't really speak English. So you have to adapt to that. It's a really good screenplay, like, in itself. And I've already touched on this. It balances everything really well. And it has great character development for all of our characters. And I think each character is written really diversely, and no one really falls into the same sort of trope of one another. They all feel different and individualized.
and really just the unique dynamic everybody has with their kind of way of coping with Nine Eye's death. Aquafina's father is he's like basically turning back to drinking and smoking, and he's not handling it very well. He's really sad. Her mother is trying to kind of be strong through it and not really show any emotion. And everybody's just kind of dealing with it in a different way, and I really love the genuineness of all this. So with that being said, I gave it a 7% out of 8%.
Yes, me too. 7 out of 8. Really strong, just didn't quite get there, but very good screenplay. 7 out of 8. Let's move on to soundtrack. We actually got a comment about the soundtrack. Someone said that they absolutely love the soundtrack, and
Well, I thought the soundtrack was pretty forgettable. I'm not even kidding. I'm sorry to whoever said that. Okay, to be fair, I thought that the song they chose to use in the final montage of the film was really solid. And I really liked it. Definitely made me cry a few extra tears. But I don't know. I just really thought that the actual score and soundtrack of this film was not very... I thought it was forgettable. Like, I really just didn't think it added very much to the film other than background music. Except in that final montage, like... I'm just being honest. I really don't have many notes just because it wasn't very present for me while I was watching the film.
Really? I thought the score was very present. Like it has such an original sound to it.
Yes, but I mean it is a fairly short score.
Yes, but this is like, I don't know. For me, this is a key example of like Martin Scorsese take notes. You can have a score that sounds similar, but you use different melodies. Like, all the scoring in this film has a very similar tone and vibe to it in the overall like instruments used and the singing voice that's used throughout.
Yeah.
But depending on the scene that we're in, they use the same thing, so it actually kind of sounds like the same song, but they change the melody. So some are a bit more upbeat, some are a bit sadder, some are a bit more like ambiguous sounding. And by doing that, you change the overall tone of these scenes. And I was like, this is what Raging Bull should have done, because you can still use that music that's still beautiful, but by changing it ever so slightly, you change the entire like or just feel of a scene.
I mean, I just from afterwards looking at the score, it's just very like the individual pieces themselves average from 30 seconds to 40 seconds. Like, I don't know. To me, I just didn't really think that the score was adding much to the scenes. And in a lot of the key moments of the film, I found there was either no score, or for me, like, for example, the wedding, like, there's parts of that scene that are dubbed over by score, but a lot of my favorite moments were just background noise of people talking and, like, karaoke beats playing, which obviously could be considered an element of soundtrack, but looking at the actual score that was created for this film, I thought it was pretty underwhelming. But even just compared to other A24 films from the same year, like, I don't know if you've seen The Lighthouse, but The Lighthouse is a film with such a moody score that adds so much and such a unique score. I would even argue that Minari has a really amazing score.
Minari does have an amazing score, and The Lighthouse has a good score, but The Lighthouse score, it's like, I don't know. It's kind of...
Bro, you can't even talk to me about the Lighthouse score.
The Lighthouse score is
fantastic.
intense, blasted white noise. That's the Lighthouse score.
The Lighthouse score is, in my opinion,
not...
like a horror movie version of the Arrival score. Like, very bassy, ambient, but amazing.
Okay.
Whatever. I'm just saying, compared to other A24 films, I feel like it isn't necessarily that epic.
Okay, fair enough. But if you give this score lower than what you gave Raging Bull, I'm going to call bias so hard.
Well, guess what? I think I gave it the same thing.
Okay.
5%. What did I give Raging Bull?
Yeah, you gave Raging Bull 5%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Okay. Good. Because if you gave it lower than Raging Bull, I would have been annoyed.
No.
Yeah. Okay, I don't think this score is brilliant. I agree with you, but I will say that I didn't think it was forgettable because when I went into this film, I remembered the score. So, therefore, it's not forgettable for me. It's definitely not a score I would listen to, without a doubt. But I do think it brings a lot of emotion. I thought the score was pretty good. I clearly liked it better than Ben. So yeah, it's a 6% or a 6 for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Let's move into production design, costumes and set out of 6.
I think that the production design on this film is, I would actually say it impressed me. I don't really think that it's anything great. I think it's fairly average in terms of the overall production design. I do really like the costumes actually and the set pieces.
Yeah.
But I think it definitely surprised me because when I saw the budget of $3 million and I saw Awkwafina, I was like, okay, they're gonna have a lot of this budget put towards the actor Awkwafina because I mean she is pretty big.
And what's his name? Si Ma, who plays her father. He's in everything.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I was expecting them to focus less of their budget on production design because it's not really that important of an aspect necessarily to this film. But I was pleasantly surprised. I thought the production design was above average. There were some scenes in particular where I really liked the costumes. I think the wedding had some really nice costume choices. Just when they dressed up, yeah. I thought they had some nice flair going. I actually thought that Hao's Japanese bride, Aiko's costumes were really great throughout.
Yeah.
And just some of the sets they were on, like where Hao and Aiko were taking their wedding pictures, were just really cool sets.
Really cool.
So yeah, I think the production design was above average. However, I think that for most of the film, it's very simplistic, which I'm not necessarily saying is a bad thing for this film, but it's just not really gonna give you any points.
Yeah, I agree. The production design is very simplistic, but I think the set decoration is superb in this film. Like, the color choices for each of the set pieces, the wallpaper chosen. Like, there's so many elements to how good this film looks visually that comes from the set decoration. A shot that really stands out to me is that shot, as you're saying, when they were taking the wedding photos and you got the blue wall with that pink fluffy heart. Mm-hmm. The contrast of pink and blue, which is used quite a bit in this film, is just beautiful. In the wedding, we got pink and blue balloons that are put around, and they're these like pastel color pink and blue. So it's kind of, once again, irony of the situation we're in. We have these very like contrasty colors of pink being this very like beautiful, fun color, and blue being the color of sadness, which I think is pretty cool. And we see that these colors used throughout the film. Yeah. Also, just lighting like not lighting, but the actual practical lights that are put on set to put an array of colors in scenes. Like the hotel scene, we got a red lamp to get this huge like red glow on the hotel room.
Yeah.
There's another scene where there's like very yellow toned lights lining the street that are not lining the street, but in like the actual house where in Nine house that they use at nighttime that create this very like yellow aroma to the film. So it's just little things like that that make the production or the set decoration super strong. And
Right.
I really like the costumes. I mean, it's hard with these films, like low budget films, because obviously there's not going to be huge production design. So with these, like I did with Sing Street, Place Beyond the Pines, Enemy, I'm focusing more on the set decoration and costumes than anything.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I give it a 5 out of 6 because actually I think that this is one of the better set decoration sort of lower budget film we've done so far.
Yeah, I think originally going in, I was like, okay, this is looking like about a 4%. But it was just the little scenes like that where they really had cool sets, like the wedding photos, or even I would argue the wedding itself just has really solid production design. And I was really impressed by it, that they were able to pull that off. So I gave it a 5%. More out of relativity to their budget and to other works of the same caliber.
Yeah.
5%.
Okay, let's hop into location selection. Out of 6.
Yeah.
This is some good location selection, I gotta say.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the location selection is it's above average, but I think once again, a lot of this film is shot in honestly at dinner tables. Like there's a lot of eating dinner here. And I think that the indoor more production design aspects, like I was saying, were carried heavily by the set decoration, but when they go outside, they really just are able to utilize these really cool landscapes of the region of China that they're in. So, and for example, like that really cool arch that they drive past twice.
Yeah.
Some may say that this is just the cinematographer deciding it looked cool and reusing it. But I say, yeah, but it looks cool, so I'm okay with it.
Well, it's also like taking the point of arriving and exiting. You're using the same thing.
Yeah. Like, I understand the significance, but it also just looks sick.
Yeah.
And also just shots of them all with their umbrellas outside. Like, I think that the vastness of the shots they used outside are really great.
Yeah, I really like the location selection in this film, especially the outdoor stuff. And yes, it's like they're in a place where there's so many great spots. Like when they're walking down the street, like that scene where she's walking with her uncle to her hotel, and it's that long tracking take of them talking and walking, and you see all the bokeh lights and the steam coming out from food vendors and this chaos behind them. It's such a good location to shoot at. The hotel that she stays in, you have that really cool shot of the outside of it, and then that shot in the stairwell when she's walking up the stairs, like, shot down that like triangular stairwell. It's really cool. Overall, I think this is like this is one of those films again that we were talking about this with The Place Beyond the Pines. It's one of those where it's super low budget, so they have to make do with their location selection. And it's kind of inspiring because you're able to watch these films and you just look at like, whoa, they found this place that they could shoot, and it's just cool to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they do shoot a lot of it inside. That's true. But the locations that they actually use are like really good.
Yeah, I agree. I think that for what this film is, just looking at it from that perspective, I was really impressed with the location selection. Same thing with the production design, except due to the fact that I don't know. I thought that this film had too many indoor locations that just it didn't really have enough diversity for me to give it the 5%. So I think I don't know. In my opinion, it was just slightly above average with 4%. I did really like the locations, but I don't know. I don't think it was quite enough to get the 5%.
Okay, fair enough. I think it was. um, so yeah, I gave it 5%. Five
Fair enough, yeah.
out of 6.
Okay, let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back for cinematography and the second half of our review.
Okay, we're back.
Okay,
Hopping
back
in
for cinematography, the best category.
Oh boy.
I think that the cinematography is super crisp in this film.
Crispy crisp.
Mm-hmm.
The framing in this film is so good. So good. And this is just showing people that, like, you don't need a big budget to make a good-looking film. You actually don't need a budget.
I agree.
This film is yes, of course it's not as beautiful as, like, something that's Atonement or The Master. But through this film basically upped its cinematography so much just through its framing. Like, they could have just been like, yeah, let's shoot it widescreen and get some cool locations, some nice colors, and yeah, it would have been a decent looking film. But they upped it so much by how they framed each shot in this film. The use of dead space, the basically using the rule of thirds in a way that most films will never do. Framing all of your subjects in the bottom of your frame.
Yeah, I noticed that too. That literally in the shots of them running to the hospital, they're so far in the bottom third that they're cutting their legs off. Just really giving everybody that. It almost just gives everybody, like, if you look at like a bird's eye view kind of thing, almost like just a timidness to everybody. It makes everybody seem smaller in the frame. They take up less space in the frame. I don't know, but to me it just looked like a very typical indie film in the way it was shot. It gave me some big Place Beyond the Pines and Enemy vibes. It just has that A24 widescreen look. It gave me Minari vibes even though Minari came out after. So I guess Minari gave me the Farewell vibes. So I really just think that in general it struggled for me to just kind of give my attention to it as, its own unique thing. Like don't get me wrong, technically it's very strong and the framing is super strong too. Like, I think that this is a very solidly shot film. But to truly take it to the next level of getting a very high mark, I think that the film either has to be stunning or be, like, inventive and, give itself its own style and feel.
Yeah. This is, like, my favorite type of cinematography we talked about before. I just like this cinematography. There's something about it that my eye just is attracted to. And I agree with you, it's not super innovative by any means, but I think for the budget of this film and the overall just, like, the fact that this was only her second feature film, it's a pretty impressive indie cinematography. Good looking film, good use of tracking shots, some interlacing handheld tracking and static depending on the scenes. That shot where Aquafina runs like from the wedding venue to go get Nai's hospital report. It's like a 2-minute tracking shot of her just running on the sidewalk. It's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, what'd you give it?
I gave cinematography overall an 8% out of 10. It's a high 8 just because of how technically strong it is. I just don't know if it necessarily competes with the likes of those that have given higher marks.
Yep. Okay. Since you gave it an 8, and I think I liked it a little bit more, I'm going to give it an 8.5 just so I balance out my score because I don't really want a total with a 0.5.
I respect that. I respect that.
That's just me being
nice.
weird. Anyways, let's...
It makes our average percent not a 0.25,
yeah,
you know?
like Children of Men is like
It's
92.75. It's really awkward.
Yeah, that's awkward.
Okay, let's move into editing, which is out of 8.
I think that the editing, I think it's very solid. It's kind of, it's a very similar category to cinematography, in my opinion, where it is technically very, very strong. This isn't like where in Raging Bull you get like those weird continuity errors. Like this film is edited super technically strong. The cuts are great, and they use some very funny cuts too. Like for example, them talking about the professional criers and using that as the transition to the next scene. Just little creative bonuses like that kind of boosted the score up for me. And yeah, I like the color grade too. It's very simple, but you get the occasional night scene or scenes with almost like a blue pink kind of contrast. Multiple times throughout the film. So I thought it kind of had that nice little color grade going for it. And really, aside from the CG birds, there really wasn't that much negative I can say about the editing.
Yeah. It's solid editing. I mean, I really like the overall choices, especially like when to cut. Like there's a lot of pretty long wide shots in this film, which I like. It gets to showcase the acting, like Aquafina's monologue, or just like a lot of the more conversational scenes they shoot in like long wide shots, which is really something you can only do if you have a strong ensemble cast. And it's a good choice editing wise. I think it just works better, especially in films like these that are very like emotionally driven, to just stay on the actor and not cut too many times, because then it just makes the audience a bit more invested. You're a bit more pulled into it instead of like constant cuts. You're kind of more aware that you're watching a film. I don't think there's anything super standout great about the editing, but as you're saying, it's solid. Also, the Foley work, like especially during the nighttime scenes where they shot, it's really good. Like especially that scene where she's walking with her uncle down this very crowded, loud street. It's really good sound work. Like in general, the fact that you're able to hear their voices really well, and you hear like all the food and people yelling in the background, and the steam and this like it's just really a well done sound design. But I don't think there's anything super crazy about the editing, but it's very solid. I gave it a 6 out of 8.
I gave it a 6 out of 8 as well. I think to boost it up to the next rank, you gotta do something that truly impresses me. I think 6 is like the maximum you can get for just doing everything really well and just kind of getting by in a way.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Acting time.
Okay, moving on to acting. Out of 10.
I like the acting in this film. There's some really notably strong performances, and also a bit like of some weaknesses, I thought, in the ensemble as a whole. I thought that the actress who played Nai Zhao Shu Zhen kind of stole the show for me. like, don't get me wrong, I thought Aquafina's performance was really solid. But to me, Nai Nai was just such a well-played character. She really just fits the role so well.
Mm-hmm.
And just, like, once again, obviously, there's a bit of a language barrier. Like, I can't tell if the delivery is necessarily on point. But, you know, to me, she really just gave a really solid performance, as well as her sister in the film, Lu Hong. Yeah.
Yeah. Xiao Zhuzhen won. She won the Indie and the Critics' Choice, I believe.
Yeah.
Awkwafina won the Golden Globe for Best Actress. It definitely picked up some acting awards, except for being absolutely snubbed at the Oscars that year with 0 nominations. And I mean, this film, I'm just gonna rant a little bit. I think it deserved some nominations at the Oscar this year. The fact that Ford vs Ferrari, I'm not judging Ford vs Ferrari at all, but the fact that film got nominated for Best Picture over this movie kind of upsets me a
Ford
little
vs
bit.
Ferrari is just a forgettable film.
It is,
I can't think of a single person who truly has a connection to that film.
Yeah. Like, last year we were blessed with so many incredible films. Last year was such a good year for film. But I really do feel like The Farewell could have squeezed into that 9th Best Picture spot. But, you know, the Academy just did not nominate it. But, you know, whatever. I think the acting is really good in this film as an ensemble. They just play off of each other really well. It feels like a real family. You know, it feels like we're just watching a real family have these conversations. And, you know, it's not cheated. As I was saying before, there's long, wide shots of people just talking. You're able to just really appreciate the acting in all of these scenes. There's only a couple actors that I feel were a little bit weak, like the little boy in it, the
Bao?
son of, yeah. But like
he literally didn't have to do anything. He was like on his iPad the whole time.
I know he didn't have to do anything. I just don't think he gave a very good performance in like the 3 lines he had to say. But like that's again nitpicking.
No. This is my favorite child performance we've seen so far.
Oh boy.
Okay. On real talk here. Real talk. I really love the acting, but I thought that the supporting roles, what's her name in the film? Lu Ping. Her aunt. I thought that actress was kind of weak. She was kind of giving the, sassy, technology savvy aunt role kind of deal. I don't know. I just didn't really like that performance very much. And I thought Hao's actor could have been better. I didn't really dig his fake cry. It was really over the top. And I get that obviously he's drunk or whatever, but I thought that could have been a really emotional breakdown, but it was just kind of eh. But I think overall that the ensemble cast is very solid here. I gave it an 8% out of 10.
Yeah. You know who else stood out for me was, what was her name? Ao Mizuhara. She played the Hao's fiance. She doesn't really say anything.
She doesn't say anything,
film,
but her looks of confusion are so great.
Her facial reactions in all the scenes are so funny.
I know.
They add so much comedy to it.
I'm not even gonna lie. 50% of the time I was laughing was because of her. Like, even in that scene where they're bowing, it's just her, like, looking around. Because obviously she doesn't understand what's happening. She's like, okay, I'm bowing again. Like, oh, okay, we're bowing again. Like, she just looks so confused. Or even when she's trying to get Hao to sing the Japanese song, and he just doesn't know Japanese. So she's like trying to coax him into saying the right things. Like, I thought you get, yeah, I agree with you. I wasn't going to
Yeah.
mention it, but beautiful.
And obviously Aquafina's like monologue breakdown scene is really good acting in general. It's just a really strong performance. And this is big. Like Aquafina is a stand-up comedian who really is only known for like doing satire rap and like, you know, Crazy Rich Asians kind of characters where you just kind of come in for the laugh and then leave.
Yeah.
This is a big step for her to do a film like this with such an emotional weight, and she's kind of carrying this whole film. It's a really good performance. I honestly wasn't bothered that much by any of the performances. I mean, there were a couple that I was like, it could be a little better, but like I feel like I was really nitpicking. Yeah, so I gave it a 9 out of 10 for acting.
Fair enough, fair enough. Let's move on to entertainment value, which is at a 10%. I'm not gonna. This was one of the most entertaining films that we've looked at so far, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, let me rephrase that a bit. This was, like, from a casual standpoint, one of the most entertaining films we've looked at so far.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, I understand that a film like The Master or even Children of Men isn't necessarily like the most entertaining on paper, but like just my personal taste, I find myself really wrapped up and invested in them. But a film like this is just such a film that I could just sit down and watch really at any time. It's very accessible. It's very easy to digest and just laugh at and also cry at. Like it really perfects that dramedy roller coaster of emotions. And also it's just very, very short.
Yeah, it's only an hour and 40 minutes. Which helps it out in its punchy joke delivery. Like, yeah, I think excluding credits, it's only like an hour and 35 minutes, hour and 36 minutes. Yeah.
And that's just perfect in my opinion, because this film doesn't need to drag it out. It almost helps the message of just the short time that they have left with her, in a way.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to do all this stuff with her. I don't know. I really like the short runtime, and overall I just think that this film is funny, sad at times, and really just does what it needs to do in an entertaining way, and really just kept me engaged.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those films that it's fun to watch, and I never was bored. I kind of just enjoyed this entire film. This one was my second time watching it, so once again there's rewatch value to it. And also I didn't watch this film a long time ago. The first time I watched this, like maybe, I don't know, 6 months of space between rewatching it, so it holds up. It's fun to watch. It still hit me emotionally. It had some good laughs, solid performance, good cinematography. So it's like not one of those films where it's like entertaining, but also it's like not that interesting to look at. It's like still pretty interesting to look at. I agree with you on a casual level. I think this is one of the more entertaining films we've done so far. I still think The Master was my favorite film to watch, but I think, yeah, just entertainment wise, this is probably my favorite so far. I give it a 9 out of 10 entertainment value.
Yeah, I gave it a 9 out of 10 too, just because I feel like to truly hit the 10%, I gotta be like rolling around on the ground laughing, or just, you know, something that's gonna make me even like forget to take notes on it, just enthralling. And this wasn't
like
quite
The Room, you know, it's gotta be
exactly.
like The Room
or
level
Birdemic.
Entertainment. Yeah.
So I really feel like until we land on Birdemic, there will never be a 10 out of 10. Unless I've given a 10 out of 10, I kind of forget.
I don't think so.
I think maybe Children of Men, actually.
Ooh, maybe.
I honestly can't really remember. Yeah, with that being said, let's move on to overall technical achievement out of 15%. And honestly, this this film kind of gained points for me just because of my expectations and then the reality. When I see a film with a $3 million budget, I really don't expect to be even impressed with the technical aspects. I more am expecting to be wowed by the screenplay or something. But this film really just did what it needed to do with the technical elements, and it was just very strong. There were literally, I have very little critiques of the technical elements, and I may not have given them perfect scores, but I still think that this film majorly impressed me with its technical achievement.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those films where everything is just solid. There's no mistakes really made. Yeah, I mean, for me, everything was kind of like 2 points off full marks on technical, so it's a solid 13 out of 15 overall technical achievement.
Yeah,
sound,
13,
cinematography,
13%
just
from me too.
just solid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, tally up our total scores, and then spin the wheel, see what we're doing next week.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, we've tallied up the numbers, received our final scores. Lucas, you want to go first? What was your overall score for The Farewell?
Yeah, Farewell actually scored pretty high for me, which I was not expecting. I don't know, just like when I was going through the grading of it, I was way more impressed than I remember this film being. Yeah, anyways, total percentage 86%.
Damn.
Would have been an 85.5, but I just wanted to, get that nice.
Bump it up.
Clean.
So this officially means that Lucas thinks The Farewell is a better film than Good Will Hunting.
I do. I think I do. Yes,
you
I
heard
do.
it here first.
I do. Not in all the categories, but I think overall it's a little bit better. Just tiny bit, 1% more.
Yeah. I overall gave The Farewell a percentage of 81%.
Okay.
A little bit of differentiation, but these scores are very similar to The Place Beyond the Pines, just in the fact that it's an indie film that Lucas likes more than me.
As you guys can tell, I like indie films. Like,
I don't get me wrong. I like indie films
but
too.
Ben likes artsy indie films. That's different.
Yeah, exactly.
I just like
precisely.
Indie films.
I like this film a lot. I don't know. To me, it's not necessarily like a film that really like stands out to me as a conversation of like a top 10 film for me. It's a solid film. I would recommend it, but I don't know. It's just not up there with my favorites.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe it will be after a few more viewings, but as of right now, it is not. But yeah, overall, I think it's a really solid film, and it's one of our more, like, it's so pretentious calling it accessible, but that's kind of what it is.
It's a crowd pleaser.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Enemy is the opposite of this film. Enemy is like the non-film nerds won't understand this, bro. They don't understand me. It's pretentious. And, sometimes I like to watch those, but sometimes I just want to stoop down to the everyday man. No.
So that means that
I'm not actually this bad in real life, guys, I swear.
The Farewell is in 9th place, 0.5% below Brazil, purely because of Ben's bias.
Shut up. Brazil is amazing. I love Brazil. Brazil's a cult classic, dude. Brazil is the definition of a cult classic.
Dude, I'm hating on Brazil. I liked Brazil. I thought it was a good movie. I just, I wasn't all that impressed by it. But, still a good movie. Okay, let's spin the wheel. Let's do it.
Let's spin that wheel. Let's
see...
just get right into it. This has been a bit of a longer review. Let's waste no time. Let's just spin that wheel, you know?
Let's do it.
I'm really excited. Hopefully we finally get a Wes Anderson film.
Oh boy.
I've been dying for one.
Dude, you can watch a Wes Anderson film whenever you want. Doesn't have to.
I have seen every single Wes Anderson film at least twice. Actually, that's a lie. I've only seen Moonrise Kingdom once, and I've only seen Isle of Dogs once. But I think Moonrise Kingdom is my least favorite Wes Anderson movie. So.
Can I guess why? Is it because the lead actors are children?
Is it because child actors? Yes, I'm not even joking. That's the reason, and also because I find it just less good. I don't even know why. It probably is the child actors. But can you argue with me? Like, are you really gonna say you like them?
I like Moonrise Kingdom.
I like it. Oh, dude, don't get me wrong. I love Moonrise Kingdom, but it's just my least favorite Wes Anderson movie.
Okay. I haven't seen every Wes Anderson movie like you, but I've seen most of them. Would it be No, I think I like Moonrise Kingdom better than Royal Tenenbaums, not gonna lie.
Damn! That's an unpopular opinion.
I just don't really like Royal Tenenbaums. It kind of bores me.
To be fair, I would say the Royal Tenenbaums is my second least favorite Wes Anderson movie.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, let's spin the wheel. I already got QuickTime Player up. I'm already screen recording, so I'm ready to go.
Beautiful. Spin that wheel.
Okay, we are spinning in 3, 2, 1. What are we landing on?
What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be?
Oh my god.
Is it Birdemic?
It's the Life Aquatic.
Oh! This is so hype, guys. This is my number one favorite movie of all time. Is it actually the Life Aquatic?
It's actually the Life Aquatic.
I have seen this film probably 4 or 5 times, maybe even 6. I absolutely love this film. My favorite film. You're about to watch Ben Bias come into full effect. Except, I don't even know if I can make it score that high on a chart. Like, if there was a category for sentimental value, it would score 200%. Here, I'll pull up the plot summary. I'll stop gushing about it, and actually read the plot summary.
Dude,
okay.
that's crazy that it landed on that. Out of 100 movies, and we were just talking about it. That's just weird.
This is hype. Oh man, I'm so excited. Okay. While working on a documentary, Steve Zissou's partner gets killed under mysterious circumstances by a shark. Steve and his crew set out on an expedition to hunt it down. Yeah. That is basically... This film is it's a mockumentary kind of based off of Jacques Cousteau's adventures. Everything up to the uniforms are homage to Jacques Cousteau. And yeah, it's got an absolutely star-studded cast, one of the best soundtracks, if not the best soundtracks I ever have heard in my life.
Damn.
And it is just... It's a box office flop, I'm not gonna lie. It actually had a big budget.
Has a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's better on IMDb though, 7.3 on IMDb.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah, this is my favorite film of all time. It's a really solid film, and it's not necessarily the most stylized Wes Anderson film. And it's got some big household names like Jeff Goldblum and Angelica Houston. So I feel like this is one of the more like fan received Wes Anderson films.
Right.
I'm super excited to watch this and review this. Yeah, with that being said, I think that concludes our review of The Farewell from 2019. We'll see you next week for a Wes Anderson Geek Fest.
Oh boy.
Reviewing The Life Aquatic.
Okay. See you guys. Thank you for listening to Slightly Qualified Film Students.
Make sure to tune in next week for a new film discussion and review.
Our theme song is Slightly Sexy by Thompson Springs.
Make sure to subscribe and leave us a like.
Send us feedback and comments as well as your thoughts on the film. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at S_Q_F_S.
If you would like to send us a question or a comment for next week's episode, you can email us at sqfilmstudents@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.